Hey, what's going on? Bringing y'all short and sweet stream. Not gonna do anything too crazy. We're gonna go through the rest of our casts from the other day, uh, and just roll them through. I got a ton of them in, so I wasn't able to do them all in the time that I had the other day. But now that we got a little bit more time, maybe we can watch some of these other ones that we never got a chance to get around to. So I'm not 100% sure which one we're going to be starting with, because from through and through, we've got dozens. So I don't think we actually watched this one, but High Elves versus Khorne. Yeah, High Elves versus Khorne is an interesting matchup. It's pretty Khorne favored, in my experience. There's a few builds that the High Elves can bring that can compete with Khorne's capabilities on the ground, and then also counter the Skull Cannons. Skull Cannons are probably the biggest issue for the High Elves. They don't have many great units to counter them. We'll see what Grace is able to do here, though. An Archmage of... I think this is an Archmage of Life, possibly on the Dragon. Just based on the size of the army, it should be very interesting. Be very competitive for going after the Cannon and Valkia. Well, it's actually a Life Mage on horseback, so gonna be rolling around here. Has the Armor of the Stars for Unspottable and Stalk, which is actually kind of an interesting little tech, trying to keep that mage hidden away from the prying eyes of Khorne. Just moving around the battlefield, getting into some positions where the Archmage can just sit and safely cast. Shooting from the Skull Cannon, misses the actual impact, but the Vortex gets in there, does a decent chunk of damage, and the second shot coming in might actually land square on these guys in the back here. You can see how quickly that value racks up, man. Really nice shooting from Barbs in the opening here. Barbs has had some pretty good Skull Cannon micro in the few games that I've watched of them. And good targeting on the Silverins. Really nice choice, because breaking these guys down is very important. Silver and Guard are very difficult to break apart with your mobility. Then you have to use Bloodletters and Marauders to try and do it. And Bloodletters do pretty decently into Silver and Guard, but their melee defense is actually 54, so it can be kind of difficult for a standard Bloodletter to break through that without some buff spells and the like. A couple of Dragon Princes are out here, one hiding in the woods with the Archmage. We've got some Rangers moving up through the woods, while the Lothern Sea Guard are going to be taking positions here on the low ground, doing battle with the Marauders. A handful of Marauder units, provided of course you get a decent little surround here onto the Lothern Sea Guards, would be a pretty good situation. The Dragon Princes, of course, going to be able to help flip this fight pretty quickly in favor of the High Elves, given the right cycle charging and engagements. Spearmen being broken down here by the Skull Cannon, which has got 522 value already. It's a little too far back now. You can definitely scoot it a little farther forward. Once it starts getting low on ammo, you want to get the Skull Cannon into positions where it can punish already engaged infantry. Like, you can roll up and fire right down the flank of these Silver and Guard here. Kill a few extra models. The Vortex does extra juicy damage because these guys are nicely bunched up. It can really help you break through frontline fights as Khorne, which is a big deal. Being able to get on top of units in the secondary can oftentimes be like the make or break winning engagements that you need. Beautiful Slavenir going down. Hits the Lotherns, the Rangers, and the Dragon Princes here. Some good attacks coming in from these Fleshhounds, and gonna chew on these Dragon Princes pretty badly. Taking a bunch of damage, but a good Flesh to Stone and an Earthblood. Gonna keep them decently healthy here. They do probably need to pull out ASAP, though. They really can't sit and trade against Valkia. And then with the Marauders and the Fleshhounds here, better to leave the Rangers in this pocket while the Dragon Princes try and clean up this other Marauder unit would be my advice for what you should do here. The other Dragon Prince unit hammering home against some of the Marauders and the Fleshhounds here, but Blood Beasts and Bloodletters going to help push away that elite cavalry, which really doesn't want to sit here, trade into these units. Now, Grace is doing a good job of spreading these units out, like lengthening the exposure of them. So if you could get them pinned out like that and get another cycle charge around the back of them, you can do as juicy amount of damage as you possibly could want on them. Skull Cannon helping the Bloodletters and the Marauders flatten the remaining Spearmen in this unit. And now the Dragon Princes are having to commit themselves into a lot of fights and getting themselves pretty thin on the battlefield. These ones back here, they've gotten a little bit of value, but they've taken quite a bit of damage. Lost about half their HP. Really need the Archmage to drop a regrowth or something on them. The life magic really hasn't been putting in a lot of work either. Grace has been a little slow on the draw when it comes to using these spells. And the mitigation on the healing, in terms of the amount of damage that the High Elves could be taking here, it's definitely not coming into play. This value lead is looking really fat for Khorne, is really the long and short of what I'm trying to say. And I don't see Illyrian Reavers managing to outtrade these Fleshhounds without any kind of assistance. Archmage still chilling in the trees here. Kind of an interesting little staff she's got. We'll get away from there. Bloodletters, Blood Beasts, and the Skull Cannon continuing to farm all of the High Elf infantry. And a nice little thing that you can do with the Skull Cannon, it can fire in melee contact. Because it's a pretty tall model, it can shoot over most infantry. Does miss its shots. It's been a little inaccurate since the opening of the battle, but it does cause fear. And it has good infantry clearing capabilities in melee still even. Decent little shot there. Should help the Silverins get broken down, especially with the help of these Exalted Bloodletters here. Already up to 73 kills. About to get Hellblade off, and they're just going to absolutely mulch through the White Lines of Trace here. Really decent AP infantry unit for the High Elves, but struggles in the Khorne matchup in my experience. They've got decent melee attack and melee defense, and they do okay into Chaos Warriors. You do see a fair number of Chaos Warriors in this matchup oftentimes, but they are terrible against Bloodletters of both types. Regular Bloodletters, but especially Exalted Bloodletters, farm White Lions pretty horribly, and ends up being a pretty negative trade for the High Elves. And they are kind of getting bodied here. Bloodletters hanging in with Valkia supporting them, chipping away at these Illyrian Reavers. A lot of the High Elf mobility getting broken down pretty badly here. Infantry fight is going okay for the High Elves in some respects, but they're just losing a little too much here in this middle fight now. And the side flank here looking pretty exposed with no real range support and not a lot of mobility moving around to try and get after the Khornate forces that are left out here. Khorngor's flattening the remaining Rangers here. 125 kills, 850 value. Very nice performance from them. Really good counter on the Furies that are landing on top of the Lothrons. Furies on Lothran Seaguard typically do pretty well, but with a good rear charge from the White Lions, Grace is able to value trade pretty efficiently there. It's going to be really tough getting back on these points, though. Khorne is going to be able to swing a triple cap if they really want. You can see the Exalted Bloodletters with almost 800 value, swinging over and going to be going after the Spearmen with the Skull Cannon, softening these guys up. You can see, after performing pretty miserably with the shots for a little while, gets into melee, recharges some ammo, 118 kills, almost up to the 1100 value mark to pay for itself. Bloodletters and Blood Beasts. These Blood Beasts have been very well microed. 984 value on them. Definitely going to pay off. Khorngor's fighting White Lions. Not the greatest fight for Khorngor's, but some rear charging Fleshhound's going to help break down the leadership, get a little extra damage, and Khorne's probably going to swing that pretty quickly as well. Very good job chasing units off too. These 21 Dragon Princes could provide a little bit of value if the healing support were online the way it should be, but Grace seems a little lost in this game. A little bit lagging behind on the micro level. and maybe also just struggling a bit to get good positions off on where to drop the magic. Because a lot of these units are getting wrecked really quickly and just not able to hang in for very long in combat. By the time they can get a heal, they're just breaking, and then they're being chased down, and then you're wasting your magic. And then you only have so many units on the field to be able to make this happen with, so High Elves probably needed that those regrowths in the Earthbloods to be used a little bit earlier than they have been this game. 1100 on the Skull Cannon, Valkia, 800 value. Nothing stupendous, but she's helping break down the Dragon Princess here. She's excellent against heavy cavalry units like this. Non-AP Shot Cav really struggle against Valkia just because she's a small target with anti-large. And she can kill 3 or 4 models with her spear pretty effectively. She's got that 20 bonus versus large that really helps her out. Even once she's in a exhausted state like this, she's still devastating towards those type of units. Furies break the War Lions. Very good micro from Barbs, just hovering overhead. Gonna be escorting those guys off probably. Well, the last of the Flesh Hounds go down out here, but giving the Marauder Horsemen some time to throw, and again, a good retreat, man. Barbs has just been on point with the micro, and Grace is just a little too slow on the draw with some of these choices, as well as not really having the proper build to be going up against Khorne. This is a pretty standard Khorne build, and this High Elf build doesn't have a lot of missile play in it. It doesn't have any big SEs to go after Valkia. It's not forcing Khorne to move up, and it's kind of playing into the melee grind just way too much. You can see the Exalted Bloodletters have about half their HP left, and they have just been farming infantry up to this point. And they're going to get even more value here as they grind through these Illyrian Reavers and the Silverin Guard that are waddling out onto the battlefield. Like I said, regular Bloodletters struggle a little bit against Silverins, but Exalted Bloodletters are the perfect counter for Silverin Guard because they do have a really strong bonus versus infantry that can hit pretty competitively against the melee defense here. And with their pretty insane weapon strength with Hellblade active, they can usually cut through models pretty quickly and mitigate healing with just the sheer DPS they put out, but also the fact that they've got the fire damage also mitigates healing tremendously. And that's been another big inefficiency for the High Elves. I think an Archmage of Life can work here, but I think Archmage on Dragon is a necessity. The breath attacks, very important for breaking down Khorne's infantry. You really can't go toe-to-toe with them in any respect, so you might as well just not even try. And you can see the results of it here with a lot of these infantry units getting very little value. Rangers did alright. Rangers are very good against Khorngors, and these guys fought the Khorngors pretty well. These Lothern Sea Guard, not a lot of value to speak of. Lotherns need to come out in the reinforcements, honestly, because Khorne is very good at intercepting reinforcements oftentimes. Lotherns are good in the reserve because they come out. They've got the missiles, so they can advance and get engaged very quickly if need be, but also, it's hard to dive these guys. Furies can do it. You don't want to use Flesh Hounds. If your opponent's sending Flesh Hounds into Lotherns, you can take that trade any day of the week, because they win very quickly against a Flesh Hound unit. And if you land with Furies on top of Lotherns in the High Elves deployment zones, you've got good quick cavalry to respond with as the High Elves. White Lions, you saw that one fight where the Fury landed on top of the Lothern Sea Guards, and then the Lions came in, cleared them off pretty quickly. If those Lotherns and the Lions had been able to work together for the majority of that game, you probably would have seen some really excellent value out of them. You have to play both defensively, but also aggressively as the High Elves against Khorne. You have to take objectives, but you also have to be ready to abandon points when Khorne's threatening to overwhelm you with superior infantry. You want to be able to pull back and punish their much flimsier mobile options. Horsemen, Furies, Fleshhounds, Blood Beasts, all of them have pretty low armor values. So having archers, and especially the Illyrian Reaver Archer Cav, very, very good at being able to work these units down, because you can see Blood Beast 1600 value on them. They were well on their way to doubling that. You can just avoid those guys, cap up objectives, really stress the micro on Khorne. Khorne wins anytime they're able to just take straight up fights. So High Elves have superior mobility in a lot of respects. You really have to make better use of it. And the Fireborn were desperately needed that game. They would have been excellent against the Blood Beast. Would have been a very good shock cavalry tool. Even against the Khorne Gores with some good rear charges, would have been able to break them down. Would have been good against Wrathmongers in a pinch. Much riskier fights, so probably not worth it, but just sweeping and saving the missile units would have been a pretty good use of those guys. Yes, this is from Saturday's tournament. I'm just going to be doing like a 1.5, 2 hour stream just to go and cover as many of them that I've got left as possible. What are you working on for your thesis, PZ? That's sick. Also, Skull Cannon. I don't think the regular Skull Cannon needs to be nerfed. They're still pretty situational. Their leadership is very finicky. They're pretty easy to counter if you know what you're doing. The ROR is the exception. The ROR needs to be toned down. It's pretty insane. I think it deserves to be banned. I think it should stay banned. I think if they took the vortex damage off of the ROR's missiles, it would be a very balanced unit, and it would be a very important unit for Khorne. It wouldn't be an auto-include in every matchup, and instead it would be pretty critical for like matchups where there's like large flying units. You know, like against Bretonnia to shoot Royal Pegasus Knights, shooting Longmas or the Changebringers, units like that. I kind of like it for that anti-air role, and I think it could be tailored in that direction a little bit more, honestly, because the shooting without the vortex damage on it is still strong on the ROR. Just having those like 5 missiles that heat seek onto a target is strong enough as it is. I think it would be in a pretty balanced state without the vortex damage, because that's kind of what tips it over the top into being a little bit oppressive as a unit. It's just too competitive. I believe we've seen this one. We watched this one. Don't think we watched Pizu's games, though, really. This is going to be a really interesting one. High Beastmaster looks to be on the Scourge Runner Chariot, a very competitive choice. Very popular now, and I kind of like that. It's been a while since Dark Elf Lords, other than the big Dragon Lords, got a lot of shine, but the Beastmaster is definitely in a good spot for that. I'm curious to see if people start maybe mixing Rakarth in a few matchups, because Rakarth has some pretty good abilities on him. Kind of getting me inspired to play some Dark Elves. But anyways, we'll get into this game. We've got a Sorcerers of Shadows with Melkoths. Darkstar Cloak, very good item. Definitely worth keeping for the power recharge rate. Very efficient character squad here. Canine Assassin. These guys are interesting. They've got incredible melee attack, pretty low HP pool, and they're not the quickest unit in the world, but 45 foot speed's still pretty decent. They've got a short-range missile that does some pretty good damage, and some cool abilities. The Black Dragon Egg being a Scabscraith type effect, a little bit less damage than the Scabscraith, but all AP, which is really good. Not going to be... The AP not super applicable against Wood Elves, obviously, but still going to be useful against the Eternal Guard lines. Assassin's Trophy, also a really good item. Debuffs enemy lords immensely and makes them very vulnerable to getting chipped down in melee combat. Repeater crossbows, retreating away from the Glade Riders here, and the Sisters of the Thorn are one of the best skirmisher units in the game. These reindeer cav ladies are insane. They're so powerful. Their javelins do a lot of damage to skirmish cav. They've got a decent amount as well with, what, I believe it's 11 volleys? Or 18 volleys, Jesus. Okay. So yeah, they'll pretty much wreck anything that the Dark Elves are going to be sending into the Wood Elves, but Scourge Runner Chariots are a much longer range unit and will be a pretty good counter to them. Really good micro from Trevlig, keeping them out of harm's way. Glade Riders take a little bit of damage here, while the Glade Lord is looking for a way in, maybe, as well as also looking for a good Prey of Anath Rama target. It looks like we're going to be getting a little bit of an engagement in the front line here. We've got some Dryads moving up. Need to be careful of the Dark Shards. Dark Shards are a devastating unit. They've just got such good missile strength. They fire, you know, multiple shots from each volley, in fact. And if enough of them hit, they can chunk down lightly armored units like this. They're just especially good against unshielded infantry units. You can see helping the Bleak Swords to potentially win that fight and not be in a position to rout in the mid-game. High Beastmaster rolling around, getting a little bit of value, but also taking some missile fire. Deepwood Scouts shooting at him, getting some good work on him. And the Glade Guards and Eternal Guard are doing a very good job of pushing back the Wood Elves, or the Dark Elves up to this point. Wood Elves just kind of sitting back on their haunches, which is probably the right way to play this right now, honestly. The impetus is on Dark Elves to get through your front line, to get after your missiles. Wood Elves, after all, do have some of the longest range, hardest hitting missile units in the game. You can see here that they just absolutely dumpster the Dark Rider repeater crossbows back here. We do have Scourge Runner Chariots screaming up the middle with a nice collapse from the Crows of Cain, who should be able to finish off this Glade Guard unit. Now, the most important thing you need to do, as with these Scourge Runners, which I'm sure Pizu is going to be all over in just a minute here, is just using the Scourge Runners to run down more of the missile units, and then engaging with the follow-ups here from the Dark Riders as well as the Crows, who are going to be a really nice unit because they are flying after all. They'll be able to get back up in the air and pick and choose their engagements at will, and they just absolutely deleted that Glade Guard unit. Very bad loss for Trevlig here, although Trev is doing a decent job of trading. I see some Black Ark Crusader engaged on Eternal Guard. That's definitely a very nice choice for the Dark Elves, and a win condition type of trade. Being able to get some hard-hitting anti-infantry units through the Wood Elf front line can put a lot of pressure on them that they can't effectively deal with. Just because heavy armor tends to be a little bit of an investment to get through for the Wood Elves. They've either got to use a Way Watcher or a Starfire Shaft Glade Guard, or, you know, they're Wild Hunters of Kurnus, or even the Wildwood Rangers, in order to get rid of these guys. Unless they want to spend a bunch of time shooting at them, and also having to kite back their Deepwood Scouts and stuff to stay away from them. These Black Guard, man, getting some pretty nice value, and definitely going to be able to put in some more work in the later stages of the game here, potentially. Crows of Cain looking to get across and onto the Glade Guard. Really good Melkoths going down on the Glade Riders here. High Beastmaster needs to be very careful. Hasn't gotten a lot of value. Getting worked down a little bit, down to about half HP, and one good Prey of Anath Rama is going to be all it takes to ice that character. And losing your Lord is never a good thing. And Dark Elves use lots of chaff oftentimes, so their leadership can get a little bit lacking in the absence of their Lord's leadership buffing effects, and having that malice of -10 and -16 applied when you do lose your Lord. Crows of Cain land, but really good micro with the Wild Riders and Sisters of the Thorn flattening the Crows. Crows were a little too exposed there. I think with the assistance of these Cold One Knights, that could have been a winning fight for the Dark Elves. But losing that flying unit now, with all of the missiles that are still online available for the Wood Elves, it's going to start getting really risky here for the Dark Elves to continue committing themselves into this middle fight. You can see the Cold One Knights trying to respond here, but getting dragged into some of the Eternal Guard, as well as fighting just a ton of Sisters and Elite Cavalry here. You know, Wild Riders aren't great AP fighters, but they do have decent combat stats, so they should be able to get through the melee defense of the Cold One Knights, which isn't all that great to begin with. Luckily, Murderous Prowess is active for the Dark Elves, so they are getting a big boost to their kill potential here. And it does help them even up the value a little bit. Really nice moment here for the Dark Elves right now. Cold One Knights engaging the Wild Riders. Wild Hunters of Kurnus out here and doing some really good work against them. As well as the Sisters of the Thorn, and also a good Melkoths, man. These Melkoths have been pretty on point, honestly, and I do kind of like using the upgraded versions. You know, that does only give the extra range on the spell, but that little bit of extra range got some big damage across the field on a very elite unit, getting some pretty good value here and helping a pretty critical fight. This Cold One Knight really needs to carry some water here for the Dark Elf army. Dark Elf Infantry Corps somehow managing to stay in this fight. Very tattered remains here, but should be more than enough into the mid-game here, especially with the Cold One Knights shutting down the last of the Wood Elf Archer unit play. A couple of Glade Guard over here looking to try and do something, but these Deepwood Scouts going to go down very quickly here. Very squishy unit. Glade Guard did use all their ammo and got some very cost-effective value, but they will also go down, and no unsummon on those guys means no refund, which is a little unfortunate for the Wood Elves. Scourge Runners getting really good value, man. Just about paying for themselves, both of them. Kiting back a little bit now, and drawing some Glade Riders out in response, which the Dark Riders will do an excellent job of hammering home against. Dark Riders have a really good charge bonus. And these guys do have a little bit of the Murderous Prowess since they just came out of the Vanguard. They got up into the fight quickly enough to still have that active. As soon as this goes off, it does stay active, theoretically, for the rest of the battle. You'll notice if you're summoning units in, you'll see that it is procced the second they get in, which is kind of nice. If you are in a losing situation, but still have a decent-sized force, you can get some units out with the Murderous Prowess active, swing the battle back a little bit easier in your favor, and then push right back up onto the objectives. Dark Elves can do some really nasty kite play. Not seeing a lot of that here, but just really solid engagements across the battlefield are really giving the Dark Elves a lot of battlefield control. The Cold One Knights especially have been used excellently. 1,200 value on that one. We've got 1,000 value on the other one. Pizu has been doing a great job with these guys, and that's one of the most critical aspects of good Dark Elf play, is knowing how to use your Cold One Knights. Dark Riders helping out a lot too, and the Scourge Runners doing their job as well has been great. The Infantry Corps held, and that's the most important thing they can do. They didn't really get a lot of value. Dark Shards did pretty decently though. They got 1,200 value, which is pretty brutal, honestly, if you really think about it. It's a 550 gold, or no, the shielded variant is 650 gold. But still, doubling up your value with a cheap missile piece like that, beautiful stuff. Witch Elves engaged on the Wildwood Rangers. Big winning fight for the Witch Elves. They absolutely obliterate Wildwood Rangers, who have pretty low armor. Very similar role, but the Wildwoods do have the AP and do cost 150 more gold. Witch Elves, as long as they've got Witch Brew up, will always outtrade the Wildwood Rangers pretty aggressively. It's pretty bad for the Wood Elves in that 1v1. Dryads do get a collapse on the Witch Elves, though, and Dryads do pretty well against Witch Elves, just because the magic damage that the Dryads have. Witch Elves also don't have magical attacks, so it's a little bit of a reverse situation from the Wildwood Rangers. Dryads are much cheaper than Witch Elves, and mitigating their resistances usually puts them in a winning spot, but they do get collapsed on by mobility that the Dark Elves are bringing out en masse and doing really good work with. Another Melkoth's going down, this time on Eternal Guard. Really good option, as always. Any amount of damage on the remaining units the Wood Elves have is going to just be extra juice for the Dark Elves in the late game. Glade Riders looking to get after the Sorceress. Beastmaster playing a very dangerous game. 11 shots left, only 241 HP. Definitely needs to stay away from any of the Lords or missile units that are coming out onto the field. And Pizu hiding them in the trees now that there are some missile units that can threaten, like the Glade Riders. Very good choice there. What has the Canine Assassin been able to do? Actually has about 1,000 value. Really beautiful timing on that item, the Black Egg. Getting some big work done on those Eternal Guard, taking, you know, about 500 HP off of them. Does get beaten by the Glade Lord, is getting chased off by the infantry here. A little bit of a loss, but still just about paid for himself. Maybe even a little bit over, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it. I think these guys, with the kit they have here, are 850, 950 in cost. It's really impressive Dark Elf play. Honestly, some of the cleanest I've seen. And Trevlig has been doing some pretty good micro in his own right, but really hasn't been able to properly secure the backfield at any point in the game. And the mobility has been a big letdown for the Wood Elves here. Getting out-traded and outmanned in the positioning game. Oftentimes, these Wild Riders are moving up and they're engaging multiple units at once, while the Dark Elves just stand their ground and then flood in mobility onto the flank, and that's been the big deciding factor in this match here, I would say. So maybe just a little bit cleaner formational discipline from the Wood Elves would help. They kind of overextended on all three objectives. If they just focused on holding the number 1 and then skirmishing over the other 2 objectives, and just forcing the Dark Elves to have to commit their forces very even spread across these 2 points, I think the Wood Elves would be in a really good spot, just because they're shooting out trades the Dark Elves so ferociously. You can just bring in Deepwood Scouts, you can bring in the Glade Guard. I would have really liked to see some Starfire Shaft Glade Guard. Starfire Shafts are great against Cold One Knights. They do pretty well against Dark Riders, and especially against the Black Ark Corsairs. Those AP missiles on the Glade Guard are very powerful. Hagbane tips are also useful. They can slow down Dark Riders. They trade pretty effectively as well. Every last little bit of value you can get out of your missiles is a win for the Wood Elves here. And they're trying to get back in this game. I just think they're a little too far behind at this stage. The tickets are a little too unfavorable for them right now. And they just don't have a presence here in the center objective. Branch Wraith has been doing some pretty good damage. Definitely could be dropping some more Earthbloods and Melkoths, I think. Has been using them pretty aggressively this game. I've been seeing them going off in the background quite a bit, but I'm not sure if the Melkoths haven't been used as well as they possibly could. I've only seen a couple of them come out. They have been on Cold One Knights, to be sure, which is always the best option. But maybe something a little bit different might do the Wood Elves some good. Maybe just a full commitment to healing magic or something would also work out a little bit better. Glade Lord doesn't have any more uses on the Prey of Anoth Rayma, and that was a pretty good Arrow of Kurnus there. Did some big work against the Dark Riders, clearing them off of the Branch Wraith there. Unfortunately, back here, the Crows of Cain, pretty uncontested. Just jump all over the Deepwood Scouts. That's going to be a very dead missile unit here, which has been doing some really good work, but missing out on using all of the ammo on these Deepwoods is pretty painful here in this situation. They're very needed for clearing out the Witch Elves who have been wrecking the Eternal Guard and whatever infantry the Wood Elves have been able to put up onto the points. And it's just a little too much trickle. If you're losing a game and you don't have as many units as your opponent, the best thing you can do, just rally to your one point that you're committed to holding, reconstitute your forces as best you can, and make sure that your summons are coming in on protected angles. You don't want to leave units like Deepwood Scouts off on their own, just in the open field with nothing to support them. That's just a little too much to feed to your opponent. And any damage that you're getting over here on this #1 objective can't be followed up on because all of the Wood Elf units are over here in the trees, or they're on the middle objective. You're better keeping stuff all together and getting damage in where it's most important, which is in the fights that you need to win objectives. And Dark Elves did that very well. Wood Elves just need to tighten that up a little bit, and I think they'd be fine. This build is really solid. There's nothing to complain about here, really. Just making sure you can get like maximum value out of all of your units is the winning play for the Wood Elves. Wood Elves really like to play the long game, and Dark Elves can, but honestly Dark Elves are a pretty aggressive faction. They benefit pretty immensely from breaking down their opponent's formation and making the battlefield a much more chaotic place, which is where they thrive a little bit more than Wood Elves, who want to sit in pretty tight formations and value trade that way. Yeah, the Assassins is a counter to Waystalkers. That's a good point. That's a good choice. Alright, hold on. Let me catch up on the chat here. Better off bringing a Flying Doom Squad that can deal with Valkia. Yeah, usually. Double Moondragon and Teclis is the meta choice against Khorne right now. It's the best thing you can do. It's really easy to counter Skull Taker as well as the Skull Cannons. What you do is you net the Skull Cannons with Teclis, and then the Moondragons breath attack the Skull Cannons and just delete their source code. It's pretty brutal. I've definitely seen that happen to me personally, and suffered for it. Test platform for my professor's research. Superconductors. That's sick. That's much above me. I got my my bachelor's in history, so engineering is well above my level. Cognitive science depends on if I'll stay in academia or not. It's always the choice. I wish you luck in making that decision for yourself. So we've got a likable man who is in the tournaments. That's good to know. It's kind of crazy how global the Warhammer community is. I mean, it really is like a hobby that reaches across all continents and backgrounds, it seems. One of the reasons why I like it so much. But here we go. We'll see, what other matches do we have that we haven't seen? Oh my god, this is the one that I really wanted to show off. I don't know if y'all checked out the Thunderbarge video, but that one's definitely worth seeing. And this one, in a similar vein, is showing off another really cool unit. Wonder of the Ages coming in for the Empire. Really awesome unit. It's got some pretty powerful combat abilities here. It's got like a cannon in the front and gunners on the top who can do a pretty good job of sweeping and controlling multiple objectives. For the Empire, that can be you know, a big boon for them, because that can tend to be one of their struggles, is being able to like bounce back and forth with a terror-causing unit that can really help the state troopers just lock something down against infantry. So where is it? Here it is, way out here. Gonna be trying to roll over the Dowie. Dowie do have plenty of tools to deal with this. One of them is out here on the field. The Iron Drake Trollhammer torpedoes. Very powerful against the Wonder of the Age. They do some pretty big damage to it. And you can see that bonus versus large helps them out tremendously. They've got really good range now. It used to be much shorter range. The 170 is very helpful for them. It has turned them into one of the better Dowie weapon team units. Probably the best of the bunch, in fact. And maybe an auto-include in every matchup. It says they're specialized for anti-large, but I've seen them do pretty well against infantry as well. Searing Doom comes in, overcast, big damage on the Quarrelers. They were very blobbed up. Gotta make sure that, you know, you keep spacing on your ranged units so stuff like that doesn't happen. And the Gelt pick is pretty good. I like it. I think Searing Doom is always competitive in terms of what it can do for magic. Even against spell resist like the Dowie and Khorne have, I think it's plenty useful. You can see there. Being able to break down the missiles from long range, gonna help out the Empire a lot. Definitely gonna help the Wonder of the Ages, which is getting a little bit of value from the shooting so far. Good dodge on the Searing Doom here. Good attention being paid by Maidon here. Right Marshal, just like moving up the field, trying to get locked in melee combat, but the double Empire Captain getting the absolute stuffing beaten out of them by Garagrim and Felix here. Felix actually dropping, oh wait, no, that's Blood Oath activated. I thought he had Helping Hand active on Garagrim for a second. But he does have it here on his toolkit, so he can drop that whenever he wants. It's a pretty good target for Helping Hand, too. You know, if Felix isn't going to be hanging out with Gotrek, at least he's found another cool Slayer to hang out with, right? More good magic and use out of Searing Doom, getting big damage on those Dowie warriors who are locked in combat with the State Troopers. State Troopers gonna lose all these fights without some support. They do get a little bit of support back here. The Knights of the Black Rose find their way into the backfield onto the Quarrelers, who are pinned in, and there's nowhere for them to go. They're just completely stuck up against the terrain blocker here, actually. Probably gonna lose both of these guys. And Gyrocopter Brimstone guns don't have great AP, so the Knights of the Black Rose should be able to last in here long enough to probably chip these guys down, but maybe not worth it. Now that I'm looking at it, I think they might be better off looping back in and getting rear charges in the middle fight there. Iron Drake's pushed off. They got 750 value. You can see they did some pretty big damage to the Wonder here. Wonder only has 138 value up to this point. Really needs to be getting the chariot attacks rolling through the Dowie front line. That's where the real prowess of this thing is going to be felt. Although I guess going after all of the Quarrelers here isn't a bad option. Rolling over the Slayers. Slayers are okay against chariot pieces like the Wonder, but they struggle against mass. And high armor means that they're not going to be doing nearly as much damage as they'll be taking. One of the best counters to Slayers in my experience is stuff like Razor Gore Chariots or Gore Beast Chariots for Khorne. Really flatten Slayers if you can't get infantry onto them. It can be very punishing for the Dwarves. Dwarves falling behind a little bit, but their heroes are doing decently. The Rune Lord is in some danger, though. Did drop a Rune of Speed to help out the Dowie Warriors in this fight. They are getting some big damage on the Spearmen, who are all on the verge of running away now. Slayers getting into combat against the Spears is going to be very favorable trade for the Dowie. They should be able to clear out these Spears, maybe get some damage on the Wonder, although the Wonder dropping those explosions over the side, really messing up the Slayers right now. 67 value now. Now it's starting to get some good damage done. That's really important for the Empire. Empire do have a pretty good surround on the Dowie units out on the number 3 here, but it's going to take a long time to break these guys down. Silver Shields, heavy armor. Only the Sterling's Revenge Free Company have AP missiles on them, so these regular Free Company are going to struggle pretty tremendously for a while until they can actually do some good work there. Felix comes over to support the Rune Lord against the double Empire Captain, and that is going to be a big win for the Dwarves, man. Dowie Hero Cores are not worth going after more often than not. The best thing you can do is to just try and avoid them, in my experience. You really don't want to engage much with them. Landship really hasn't been much of an MVP this game. It's really been the like wide nature of the Empire build that's winning them this match right now. They're doing a pretty good job against the gyrocopters as well, which certainly doesn't hurt. These are very powerful and obnoxious units to handle for a lot of factions, but Empire definitely showing their stuff and being able to push them off pretty efficiently here. Big volleys from the Free Company as well as the Hochland Long Rifles, 1850 value on those guys, ending up being the MVPs, honestly. More Searing Dooms, going down on the Longbeards in the middle here. Where is Balthazar Gelt casting from? He's flying around here somewhere, right? Oh, no, he's landed. What is this? Terrible decision. Balthazar is not worth landing at any point. Certainly not near these Dowie heroes who are feasting on the souls of all of the Empire units that move up in here. Bit of a miss micro as well. The Hochlands, with a lot of ammo left, wander right into melee combat. Got to be very aware of stuff like this. They're trying to chase the gyros. That's why you put stuff in guard mode, so you don't have your units just wander into bad situations like this. But the Wonder of the Age does scream over and try and provide a little support, although it is down to bare bones HP, 67 health left. Maybe a little bit of healing magic would have been a good option for it. I'm not sure why it's taken so much work. Just slow and steady fire from the Iron Drakes, I guess, has done the balance of this damage. 1400 value on this one here. What else has been shooting it? That's kind of crazy that it's so weakened now. I really haven't seen it been hit by much of anything, in fact. But big loss for the Empire potentially there. They are flipping the number 3 and doing a very good job of gunning down the remaining infantry here. Greatswords are anchoring this point. They should be able to clear the Slayers. Free Company, if they disengage, could also do a little bit of damage against the Slayers. And Empire with a lock on 2 objectives. They're catching up on tickets. They've got a little bit of a value lead. Although I do think it's a little deceptive. A lot of the value that the Dowie have left on the field is in their hero core, which is Garagrim, Felix, the Rune Lord, all of whom are definitely going to do a good job of anchoring the number 2. But I am a little afraid for the rest of the objectives for the Dowie. They're not really in force anywhere on the field right now. Ranger Great Weapons, they've gotten some good value, probably shooting at the Wonder here. Probably some of the culprits behind that unit taking as much damage as it has. The Iron Drakes opening up on the Empire Captain, tossing him about. Kind of hard for Iron Drakes to snipe infantry characters. And losing the gyros, another big loss for the Dowie early. Pulling them back out here, but situation hasn't changed much. Still going to be very hazardous for the gyros. 218 value. Going to be going after the Hochland Long Rifles here, it looks like. Felix breaking away from the melee grind on the middle objective, and they are going to be going... He is going to be going after the Hochlands with the gyros. Handgunners moving up. Should be able to get a good volley off on the gyros if they're microed appropriately. But looks like they're shooting in against the Iron Breakers, who just got one of the fattest blasting charge volleys off I've ever seen. Got 60 kills, and gonna clear out the rest of these spearmen here. Very beautiful stuff from these Dowie. 133 kills, only 300 value though. Look at the Wonder. Sitting back here, firing that mortar, getting a little bit of work done against the Iron Breakers. Watch it coming in. Does miss, unfortunately. Just sitting back here with it and getting any amount of value is definitely going to pay off for the Empire in the long run. It's been a good distraction, honestly. It's taken a lot of damage that the Dowie have tied up in terms of value into. And the Empire, like, ground troops are looking very healthy. And I think just the extra little bit of value out of their more off-meta option than the Dowie did for their hero core is the big swing for the Empire here. Definitely in a very dominant position. Gyro is getting shot off the field again. Pistoliers coming out. Should be able to run these guys down if need be, just running underneath them. Great swords looking to grapple with the Dowie on the number 2 here. Ironbreaker's out of ammo, but they should be able to scrap relatively well here, especially with Rune Lord on top of them. I think he's got the Master Rune of Grungni for a little bit of missile resist, which is really nice. Though I think this guy is a little bit over kitted here. I don't think you need Gatekeeper's Belt. Forge Fire is not a great ability. Wrath and Ruin and Rune of Speed are kind of necessities, but just cutting the Rune of Hearth and Home, the Gatekeeper's Belt, and Forge Fire, probably a pretty good option for the Dowie. It's like 450 gold in items that don't do a whole lot for you. You can keep the Master Rune, of course. I do really like that inclusion against the Empire. 20% missile resist against the Emperor's Chosen. Definitely a pretty good option there for the Dowie. Shooting at Balthazar Gelt up in the sky. He's gotten about 1,000 value, which isn't amazing, but is still pretty decent. More Ranger Great Weapons coming out, but just getting absolutely flattened by the Knights of the Black Rose, who have pretty much helped secure the number 1 in perpetuity. Nice Searing Doom does some good work against the Iron Drakes, who are firing onto the low ground, it looks like. Oh, they actually break because they're... oh, never mind. Here they are. I was looking at the Longbeards there. The Iron Drakes, with 7 models left, they're still firing in and getting a little bit of work done. Helping out against these Great Swords, who are really struggling, and the Iron Breakers. Heavy Metal, as always, should be able to get through the Spearman unit as well and keep this in control of the Dowie forces. The problem is flipping these other points. Dowie are just not choosing one objective, and instead, kind of similar to the Wood Elf player last game, just split pushing way too much and not committing to any one spot to win the fight decisively. It's gonna end up being a pretty conclusive end to this game if the Dowie don't start playing a little more on point here. They really need to start dominating one objective or the other. Garagrim is also getting worn down a lot and hasn't paid for himself. He's been doing some great damage, but fighting so far away from the healing that Felix offers is a big loss, and his cap weight would be very much felt for the Dowie here on this middle objective, which would, you know, free up a few more units potentially to move elsewhere onto the number 3 or the number 1. And I think that would have helped out the Dowie a bunch here. Because as it stands, they've just got Slayers operating completely independent of everyone else. Getting shot down by Free Company Militia. The Free Company Militia micro has been really nice here for the Empire. Reich Marshal, again, locking in on the Brimstone guns as they come out. And shooting them down before they get all that much value. They've gotten about 800 value, and they've been out multiple times on the battlefield now. Maybe those are just a little too risky against the Empire. I wonder what you bring instead. Instead of bringing out those gyrocopters, I think you could probably commit to bringing a flame cannon or something. That would force the Empire to have to, you know, try and get back and dive that artillery piece. Flame cannons have a discourage effect just like the Brimstone guns do. but at a much longer range, and they would just be shredding everything on the number 3 objective right now. And it can be a big equalizer having a powerful arty piece on the field. A lot of people don't like to use artillery, but I think they're vastly underrated in Dom mode. They essentially represent a 4th point on the battlefield that you're forced to contend with. You know, I mean, it basically becomes a 4th objective. Like, you know, you can sit on your points all day if you want, but with a really strong artillery piece like the flame cannon, just sitting back here and covering both of these points, you're basically in charge of both of these objectives by default at that stage. And the Empire would definitely be trying to move up a lot of their very squishy infantry units to try and counter that. Then that's where your Dowie warriors can trade a little bit easier and a little bit more safely on their own end of the battlefield, instead of pushing up onto the objectives and being so far separated from the remainder of the army. You can leave the flame cannon to do the work of the damage on the actual point, while you just keep like a really cheap Dowie warrior line on the back end of the objective, and just try and deny your opponent any opportunities to just sit and value trade on the points. We'll fast forward to the rest of this. Empire just grinding it out, and Dowie player does actually throw the towel in, kind of recognizing that there's not enough time to get that win. The Wonder wasn't the MVP this match like I thought it would be. That's actually the Hochland long rifles with 2,700 value. A really nice focus fire from it. Love to see that. Handgunners did okay. Free Company did excellent, and Spears did their thing. They held and were good cap weight. Balthazar did okay. Captains didn't do a lot, but they got a little bit of value back. Great Swords, nice unit to have, and yeah, look at that, doubling up the value on the Free Company. You love to see it, man. Pistoliers were fine. Knights of the Black Rose were okay. And for the Dowie, it was the Iron Drake Trollhammer torpedoes and Felix and the Runesmith, as well as Garagrim, who did a lot of the damage, but Hero Squad wasn't really kept together, so Garagrim got worn down, and he died a little bit of a fruitless death. I don't know if it was the heroic end that a Slayer is really searching for, but it is what it is. And there actually was a Grudge Thrower. I don't know how the hell I missed that, but got 187 kills, which is really good for the Dwarves. I mean, I think just cutting the gyros and bringing another Grudge Thrower or the Flame Cannon, like I was saying, probably would have been really useful for locking up objectives. Makes it just, like I said, it makes it easier for the Dowie to value trade on their own terms. And just because they're so slow otherwise, it's really easy to isolate dwarf units. And if you're waddling stuff forward and it's just constantly getting attacked off of the point, it's a losing trade for you, no matter what the situation is, pretty much. It's wasting your time, which is probably the most important thing that you can have as the Dowie. And then there's always the risk of value trading inefficiently. Missed the Crutch Thrower. It's definitely going in the book, and I'm terrified. Yeah, dude. Empire State Troopers. Cheap, wide, durable. I mean, durable for the chaff that they represent, really. They're not great combatants, but if you're, like, comparing their performance versus a Clan Rat, they're going to do much better than a Clan Rat in terms of actually holding the line. So, we do love that about the State Trooper Corps. Can't math yourself out of a wet paper bag. Same, man. No worries about that. Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. Greenskins and... oh, we've already seen this one. Legatus... you know, Legatus was a very new player who said they were learning the game. So I'd like to come in and talk about their experience. They said choosing the Skaven was obviously not the right call. Skaven are not a very beginner-friendly faction. Ninja Jack is a pretty, not like a new player, has played in a couple of these new player tournaments, and is definitely on a much more beginner-friendly faction, the Warriors of Chaos. So we'll see how this plays out here. And maybe Legatus can surprise us. I don't know how many games they won, so I'm not sure how this even plays out in the end. Soul of Damnation is going to be very good for the Warriors of Chaos, obviously. Just a really strong artillery piece. Be very good against the Poison Wind Globes here. And in terms of a Skaven army, this is a pretty good opening. I really like Plague Claw Catapults. I don't know if you need to keep the Doomflayer in the opening. You can probably just bring more Clan Rats instead. Get those numbers up a little bit. 14 units for some factions is pretty big. Like, it's a pretty big Warriors of Chaos army, but 14 units for the Skaven, rookie numbers, man. You gotta pump that way up. Bit of a whiff with the magic so far. Flensing Ruin is the big money spell for the Skaven. That's going to do the most work for them. Going to be very good against the Chaos Sorcerer of Death if given the opportunity to be cast on them. Ikit needs to be very careful. Doesn't want to take a bunch of fire from the Horsemen. Horsemen actually do pretty good against him. You can see there, he takes a fat volley to the face. Loses almost 600 HP right off the bat. Gets hit by a Spirit Leech, and this is trouble for Ikit, man. Ikit's very strong, but you have to be very careful not to let him get sniped, because if he's not getting his value back, and more importantly, if he's dying before you've secured a dominant position on the battlefield, Skaven fold up like a wet paper bag, man. They are not good when they're down. Decent Warp Lightning, not hitting a ton of stuff though. Warp Lightning's better against infantry in general. Against the Warriors of Chaos though, I don't know if I'd really even bother bringing Warp Lightning. Scorch is a much more powerful wind spell. Does more damage overall, and it would clear the Marauders really nicely. It's rare that you see like heavily armored elites against Skaven, just because they have so many cost-effective answers to those type of units. I really would love to see that be one of the spells that Ikit's bringing here. If you're not going to bring just Flensing Ruin and Howling Warp Gale, and you insist on bringing something else, it's worth knowing what of those spells is going to be the best option for you in a match. Crack's Call is another option. That's also a pretty decent spell. Death Frenzy is very underrated also. Legatus is playing a very risky game. This is not what you want to do with your Lord if it's being chased by Skirmish Cav. Don't overextend into your opponent's backline. You've got to rally back into your own forces. Force all of your opponent's mobility to be moving up into their own amount of danger instead of putting your unit in more danger. Rat Ogres doing a little bit of work here, but the Javelins have been doing some pretty good damage to them, as well as getting worn down by the actual Marauder Infantry here. The Clan Rats are a little out of position for these Rat Ogres, who are pretty deep overextended into the Marauder units. And you can see those Javelins come in, getting some really good poke in on these guys, who are very lightly armored. Do lose a very important unit for the Skaven. Rat Ogres need to get their value back for a good time for the Skaven player. Ikit being run over, and the Skaven are in big danger. But that was a pretty good maneuver there from the Rats for a change. They get their Skaven Slave Spears and just buffer all the units off of Ikit here, who is going to escape, fortunately. Probably be spared the absolute worst of the damage he could be taking right now. We've got some Chaos Warhounds screaming up the middle of the field, trying to get after the Poison Wind Globes. One Globe unit has been punished pretty thoroughly by the Soul of Damnation, which has about 600 value. And the other one does get broken down by the Warhounds, and that's a big loss for the Skaven as well, man. This is going to be a very short game, I think. Legatus is playing a little too much into the melee game. And playing too wide across the battlefield. As a new player, you want to limit the amount of like battlefield width that you're taking engagements on, just because it's gonna be harder for you as you're starting out to recognize positions of weakness, as well as defend the points you actually hold. You want to keep it as simple as possible until you really know what you're doing with a faction before you start doing riskier plays like this. Big loss back here. Very slick micro from the Warriors of Chaos. Getting the Hellstriders into the backfield, and they just take out the Plague Claw Catapult. Way too slow on the Eshin Sorcerers, who respond a little too late, and the Hellstriders do scream away from them, while the inevitable collapse is coming in here against Ikit. And he's got good armor, but really low melee defense, and the Hellstriders should be able to finish him off pretty quickly here with their bonus versus large. Clan Rats and some Skaven Slave Spears looking to collapse. Eshins doing their best to also help out here. Decent Warp Lightning, going to get a little bit of damage on these guys. You can see, though, not the most in the world. It kills a decent number of models, I guess. But, you know, I still feel like Scorch is the better choice. Rat Ogres actually rampaging down here on the low ground pretty nicely. The Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats are all over the place and mixed in with the Marauders and the Rat Ogres this time. So the Rat Ogres break these infantry very quickly, and now they turn around and get a good charge off on the Horsemen. You know, Lekitz is in the positions where he's actually keeping his forces a little more concentrated. He's doing pretty decently for himself. It's just the fighting on two very split objectives and a little too much blobbing. Spacing is very important for the Skaven. You don't want to leave any holes in your formation. You want to force your opponent to have to fight through all of the layers of your units. And those layers just got broken down a little too early for the Skaven to be able to hang in here, as well as losing Ikit. That's kind of the death knell for them. You can see he got 1200 value, even though he got killed relatively early. So, if Leggett just, like, locks that in next games, or the next tournament that he's in, I think he'll be just fine, and won't end up in these, you know, very, like, devastating loss-type scenarios. But, honestly, I would recommend probably playing a little bit something different than the Skaven. Skaven are much better once you've got a very solid and thorough understanding of the game's, like, flow in the multiplayer modes. Alright. So, just watched this one. Empire versus Lizards. Did we watch this game? I believe we did. Yeah, we did. Khorne vs. Khorne we watched. Dark Elves Nurgle we did not see yet. So, we'll get into this one. See what's what. Catch up with y'all in chat, too. Do you ever press tab to get an overview on the battle to spot flankers and such? You know, it's honestly not a bad idea to do that on occasion. The tactical map can be useful. The issue with the tactical map, though, is it, you know, obstructs your view of the terrain in a lot of ways. And it also isn't going to reveal anything that's hidden. It can be a little deceptive and difficult to use, in my opinion. I would really like to see CA change that, the way the tactical map works in the future. Because the thing that you're missing from this very top-down perspective is all of the little creases in the terrain that affect the way that units operate, especially, like, shooting units. Bow units obviously are able to shoot over hills, but gun lines with, like, proper gunpowder, like, you know, the Empire often uses, need to be able to line their units up on favorable high ground positions to get value out of their gunpowder. And on the tactical map, you can put a unit somewhere where you think they'll be in a good spot, and it's not really. So I try to avoid it as much as possible. But if you need a second just to see the battlefield and see where you might have units scattered about, it's not a bad idea to hit that every now and then in a match. Marauders, Chaos Warriors moving up, Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle with an Exalted Hero, both of them on Rot Beasts. Very powerful fighters, definitely going to be able to do some good work in a lot of the fights here that they might be taking against the Dark Elves. Pesty's moving up to the number 3, but the Dark Rider Repeater Crossbows, definitely going to be a very powerful unit if they're used correctly here. Could probably do to move back as quickly as possible, and they do in fact do that. Pizu very on top of the micro, very impressed with the Dark Elf play, man. We'll see what Cabbage King is able to do here. Hero riding around looking to support some. Lord just chilling also, not in any danger up to this point. Another here's what's more useful. Hit spacebar, guys. Spacebar actually shows you where firing lines are and also where your infantry are all being ordered to move up to. That can be really nice to see the flow of the battlefield. Like, you can see where all the orders for this infantry formation are going to be ending up at. So you can keep track of your formation's positioning. You can see where your enemy's units are in terms of their ability to fire in at you. And you can see attack orders that your opponent gives onto your units. It's really nice. That's much more useful than the tactical map, in my opinion. Good volley from the... oh my goodness. Beautiful volley from the Dark Rider Corps. Big damage on the Rot Knights. Rot Knights will heal all that up pretty quickly with the regen that they have. Not going to suffer too much the worse for it.
Take it back.
Dark Shards, definitely the elves need to scoot forward a little bit, but consolidating on the one objective, not a bad idea, while skirmishing over the number 3. Just needs to make sure to keep these Dark Riders safe. But I think Pizu has a pretty solid foundational understanding of the game's mechanics. Dark Riders getting a few more shots off on the Rot Knights. Rot Knights don't commit to a charge against the Spear Riders, which I think might have been for the best, ultimately. You know, these guys are very expensive. Trying to just regen the damage that they've taken isn't a bad idea, because it is inflating the value a little bit here that the Dark Elves have actually gotten done in terms of damage, and that can kind of overinflate people's idea of how well the battle's going for them sometimes. Can drag them into some pretty negligent positions sometimes, just because they think they're really far up and can press an advantage that's not really there. Although, this is a really good play from Pizu. I mean, big burning head going down here, as well as hammering home against the Bile Trolls, obliterates this entire middle position. Oh my god, 2,000 value up right off the bat here. Excuse me, right off the bat here, man. Pestigores stay in for a minute, but now they're getting routed. Terror route from the dragon. Beautiful, beautiful stuff there for the elves, and they're getting some good shots on the Exalted Plague Bearers. Rot Knights looking to get after the Dark Riders. Does Pizu notice in time? Does. And is going to be able to avoid the worst of the damage. One poor rider is unable to escape, but now the Dark Riders, or not the Dark Riders, but the Cold One Knights are going to be saving the Dark Riders here with the assistance of the dragon. He's going to do some pretty big damage here to the Rot Knights. Rot Knights do turn around. They will get some good work done against the Supreme Sorceress in an isolated fight, but being this surrounded, they get terrified. They're just getting shot to pieces also. And that is going to be a very big win for Pizu. Just big wins all across the battlefield right now. We've got some Dark Shards looking to pull back and get away from the Sorcerer Lord. Replacing and blocking up with the Dark Riders. Very nice. Chaos Warriors doing okay. That was a really good breath attack earlier, Pizu, also. This is how you play Dark Elves, guys. This is pretty pinpoint. Cold One Knights rolling up the hill. Not going to get a great charge on the Pesties here. Pestigors will out-trade the Cold One Knights in a long grind here. Definitely don't want to stay here. Do end up pulling back, which is a good choice. You can just focus the missile fire here. Dark Riders, they'll do some pretty good damage. Despite these guys having 25% missile resist, they're very vulnerable to missiles. They've got low armor and no shield, which is very punishing. You know, they can only take so much after all. Curse of the Slug going down. Oh, Tears of Nurgle, actually. Lowering the speed on the Supreme Sorceress, who's really struggling to get up onto the Exalted Hero here. These two Dark Riders have been locked in combat a little too long for my liking. They definitely need to be pulled back some. But these ones over here have been microed to perfection up to this point. The Cold One Knights have been hammering home and getting some good value, both of them paying for themselves. Pesties are on the verge of being completely broken down there, and another beautiful Burning Head, man. 1800 value on the Sorceress up to this point, gonna hit the other Pestigor unit. Does roast down their own Bleak Swords, though, so that is unfortunate, but the Dark Elves in a very dominant position, and Nurgle looking very gassed here, man. Heroes are doing something, they're doing alright, but they just don't have enough presence across the field right now, and I don't like the magic selection for Nurgle. It's just the Fleshy Abundance. I think against the Dark Elves, who are going to have swarms of infantry, you really need Stream of Corruption, which is going to do big damage to the infantry, who are very bunched up and is like the perfect spell against these type of units. Miasma of Pestilence can also do some pretty good work for you, debuffing melee attack and such, as well as just proccing Children of Nurgle, which is the passive for the Nurgle lore of magic. It's a big 1.4% heal for the whole army. It says it lasts for 6 seconds, but it technically gives you 7 ticks on it. And if you just keep that passive going the entire battle, you can get some big healing out of that. And you've always got Fecundity, which is a very good army ability. It's a solid heal, it can help you out a lot. Vile Trolls getting hammered by the Cold One Knights, another big loss for the Nurgle player here. Cabbage is just a little outmatched. Doesn't seem very confident with Nurgle. Is just advancing a little bit too recklessly into the Dark Elf units, if you want my opinion. Not really knowing the proper counterplay against the forces of the Druchii. Druchii can be beaten by just solid, solid objective play. You just lock down one point. And then what you can do is you can kind of pull apart their Dark Shard and Bleak Sword and Dread Spear opening. Force it apart a little bit. Either by hitting it with some long-range units. I would have really liked to see a Soul Grinder here. As well as magic. Can force Dark Elf players to overextend oftentimes. Because they start to get antsy when they're not winning big, so to speak. That's how you can pull the Dark Elves apart, and Nurgle should have a decent matchup against the Dark Elves. They've got some pretty good counter units, and I like the Vile Trolls. I just think that this battle was just lost in the opening moments. Pizu did a great job of dissecting the early push from Nurgle, and that was kind of game. Yeah, he struggled to make a coordinated attack, and that's why I'm saying I think he's just not a super confident newer player. But there's nothing to be ashamed about there. That ability to execute comes with time. And we'll get there. Give yourself some credit, Tabith. You'll figure it out. You know, the Dark Elves don't have a great win rate this season, but I would really hesitate to call them underdogs. I think they're one of those stronger factions, honestly, in my opinion. I don't think they're bad in the least. Um, I imagine they're even better in Land Battle and Conquest, but yeah, in Dom, they've got cheap chaff that has some pretty good combat potential. They've got one of the strongest skirmish cav units in the game. What else? Great lord options. There's really nothing that weak about them. They're just very execution dependent. And a lot of the more experienced players are just on other stuff right now. So don't look at the win rates. They can be a little bit deceptive. It really, honestly, a good player can make anything work. I would hesitate to say that there is a faction that is just outright terrible right now. Even Bretonia has matchups that it can do really well in my opinion. Just checking out some of the values. Very solid across the board. I honestly, the only thing I would say that you should change up a little bit, Pizu, is just bring like an extra witch elf instead of just the one. Witch elves are one of the best like tools that the dark elves have. Just an amazing unit. I mean, I do feel like against Nurgle, bringing as few as possible isn't a bad idea, just because there is a lot of magic damage on demon rosters, but even still, a couple is nice, because you oftentimes do see lots of Pestigors and lots of Marauders from Nurgle. And, you know, the Witch Elves are more than capable of clearing out, like, double their gold values worth in chaff infantry. Especially with Witch Brew active in the right circumstances. They can trade upwards into damn near anything. As well as trade very effectively with chaff, like I just mentioned. Great value on the Fire Sorcerers, 2,600. Oof. Wasn't even a long game either. Alright, give me one sec, guys. Gotta do something. I'll be right back. Alright, boom, we're back. Some of the... Oh, okay. Yeah, we can go over what I think the bottom factions are. I do think Bretonia is one of the bottom factions. Despite that, I do, like I said, I do think they've got some pretty good matchups. Tzeentch I do think is kind of weak, but Tzeentch is odd because, they've got some pretty crazy, matchup-specific techs that they can use. And they can do pretty well in the right hands, but they're very specialist. I think Bretonia, High Elves, and maybe... Hot take, I think Dowie are a pretty weak faction. I know a lot of people are going to disagree on that, but I don't really think Dowie are all that good in Dom. I think they're substantially worse than the Chaos Dwarfs, in my opinion. Like, Dowie have better units, overall than the Chaos Dowie do, just in terms of leadership and combat prowess. But the Chaos Dwarves have better artillery, they've got stronger Lord options with just way better mobility, and I think that matters a lot more for Dom. Dwarves, I think, are good against other shooting factions, like Empire and, okay. Dowie are best against Kislev, Empire, probably Dark Elves. They're pretty good against Tomb Kings from what I can remember. And very good against Wood Elves also. But outside of those, matchups, I think they're pretty weak against any faction that's able to, push them and rush down their missiles. All of the Chaos factions can pretty reliably beat the Dowie in my book. I know their win rate on Total Tavern right now says they're 7-1 against Khorne. I don't see how that's possible at all. That seems very hard to believe. That's very hard to believe for me right now. Because I have not lost against the Dowie on Khorne in a while, and I've played a lot of games against them. I think that might just be luck of the draw. It might be a little misleading, but, for a very long-winded answer, I think those would be your weakest factions. And yeah, they're not really bad, but they are very, counterpick dependent, and are also usually, very, very, high micro-intensity factions. Yeah, Pizu's right on it, and I concur with that. I think it's a pretty good way of settling that up. Yeah, I did talk about that game last time around. We have watched a lot of these. Check out this, I cast this one recently for a video that was independent of the stream. Freaking awesome. Loved the Thunder Barge, man. It was a pretty close game, in all honesty, too. I think the Greenskins could have even won that game. But made some pretty crucial mistakes in the opening, and the Thunder Barge just feasted on them. So, check it out. If you want to see the Thunder Barge put in some pretty heavy lifting. Wood Elves versus Nurgle. We've only got a handful more, and then I would recommend all of y'all go, Turn is streaming tonight, so y'all should go check that out when I'm done here. And go join up in that tournament if you have the time. I unfortunately don't tonight. But if any of y'all do end up going for it, I wish you luck. Nurgle versus Wood Elves. Probably the... Nurgle might be the Chaos faction that struggles the most against the Wood Elves other than Slaanesh. Slaanesh has a pretty rough time with Wood Elves, I think. But Slaanesh at least has, good enough mobility and just, quick enough units that if they engage properly, they can probably beat the Wood Elves in one really good engagement. Nurgle, though, Nurgle is going to struggle the entire game just to match the missiles for value, as well as also responding to Wood Elf cavalry moving around and just hammering everything you've got down. So we'll see what Trev can get done here. Pesties take a little bit of damage in the opening. Sisters of the Thorn throwing some of those javelins in, getting some good kills here. Decent damage. Glade Riders gonna kite back some. I don't like this Prey of Enoth Rayma. I don't think it's worth it. Prey of Enoth Rayma needs to be saved for much more important units than a Chaos Warhound, and they're not even being punished for this. That's just not worth it. Don't ever use your Prey of Enoth Raymas like that. You get 3 uses of it. You should use it to lock down a Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle or something when it's stuck in the open field. And you can push your missiles up and just punish the hell out of it with the fire. Against a Chaos Warhound, you can just run this guy over with a Glade Rider. Like a standard melee cav for the Wood Elves, and it's going to be value city for you. Warhounds are pretty terrible units, honestly. Really only good for mobile cap weight, in my book. They could do some good damage, I guess, if they get into the Glade Guard cleanly enough, but I don't see that happening. Blade Singers moving up. Blade Singers are a really fun unit. They've got a pretty good HP pool for Wood Elf unit. They've got the Whirling Death and the Shadow's Coil, both really strong activatable abilities that boost damage potential as well as defense in melee combat. Shadow's Coil is honestly a pretty good tool to pop and keep active at all times, in fact, because they are suddenly up to, what, 24 extra melee defense? Yeah, they get up to 66 melee defense, and then they can fall back on the bonus versus infantry they've got to actually do damage. They can value trade endlessly with Shadow's Coil active, honestly. It makes them especially good against units like Chaos Warriors, who, you know, have like decent melee attack, but can also really struggle to hit stuff like Blade Singers to begin with. That extra bit of melee defense in the bonus versus infantry is enough to kind of push these Blade Singers over the top. Great focus fire from Cabbage King. From Trevlig, who's just all over the Nurgle forces right now. Big damage. Pesties have been pretty much pummeled up top here. The Bile Titans have gotten pushed off as well, and they're really struggling to provide any value. These guys can regen most of that HP that they've lost, though. Not a total screw up for Nurgle there. These Bile Trolls should not be fighting Eternal Guard, and they should not be fighting separate from their infantry support. Infantry are a big plus for Troll-type units. Trolls have terrible leadership, so they can't take a lot of damage. If they're fighting on infantry, they'll take a lot less poke. And they'll be able to trade much better, as well as keeping the infantry healthier as well and winning the fight quicker overall. Plague Bearers getting shot to pieces by the missiles right now. Hagbane Tips have just been feasting this game so far. 600 and 400, this one almost at 800, and they are getting killed in melee, which is unfortunate. Blade Singers hanging out here. Plague Toads are a great counter to Blade Singers, so I do really like that choice here from Nurgle. Unfortunately for them, the Bile Trolls get caught by the Eternal Guard out here, who are going to win this fight pretty easily against those Trolls. And I think that's probably going to be the end for Nurgle. They've been a little bit too slow getting into a lot of these fights. And do we have... We've still only got Fleshy Abundance. Another reason I don't think Fleshy Abundance is good on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, he's already got the Crown of Everlasting Conquest. He's very tanky. Very unlikely to get killed, as long as he's able to squeak away and doesn't shatter from a fight. And I just think that the spell casting, the damage spells and Miasma of Pestilence, much more important on the whole. Like, you could be using Miasma of Pestilence on these Wild Riders, and the Bile Trolls would just be pounding away and taking no damage from the Wild Riders here, basically. You could drop a really nice Stream of Corruption on this fight, too, to do some really good work. Give you a decent little catch-up here in terms of the value that you're down by right now. Shield of Thorns, which is the bound spell from the Sisters here, going on the Wildwood Rangers here, and a little bit of melee damage reflection against the Exalted Plague Bearers. Doing okay. Gonna get killed here probably just by the sheer weight of numbers. They're surrounded by Dryads as well as the Wildwoods. Not going to do too well here. But the Pestigors are going to help a little bit. Glade Lord getting some shots down the flank of these units here. While the Glade Riders are trapped on the Exalted Hero. Not the worst situation in the world, though. What are the Sisters up to? They got one more good volley, and then they'll need to be just moving around the battlefield rear charging stuff to pay for themselves, I think. What else with the triple cap? Very healthy infantry on the field for them as well. Nurgle looking very, very tattered now. A lot of the trolls are dead. The few that are remaining out here on the field have done decently for themselves, and those have been in some pretty bad fights. As I said, keeping them fighting on top of infantry or warhounds is where they're really going to shine. They just haven't been given that opportunity this game, and I think that's going to cost Nurgle here. They're playing... Cabbage is playing pretty decently, though, being down this much value. Really hanging in here and scrapping quite decently, in fact. Sisters are a little out of position here. I mean... Fighting the Plague Toad hordes, not the best situation for them. Barons of the Bog get pulled out of that fight to go charge down Dryads and the Wild Hunters of Kurnus. Very bad choice. Wild Hunters of Kurnus win that fight any day of the week. This is the dedicated sweeper unit for the Wood Elves, especially against demons because of the magical attacks they have and the armor piercing and bonus versus large. Excellent unit. Needs to be babysat a decent amount, though. Very squishy. Doesn't have a ton of HP. They can get pounded down pretty badly by a lot of units, but Nurgle doesn't have any of those units out on the field. There's no Furies here. What else do they have that's really good against them? Nurgle Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights in general do pretty decently against the Wild Hunters, even though the Wild Hunters are kind of a dedicated counter to Knight-type units. The Chaos Knight units just have good enough stats and decent enough charge bonus that they can trade pretty evenly with the Wild Hunters. Especially if you get some Furies or some Hounds in to support. These guys' biggest weakness is their low armor, so if you can... find a way to take advantage of that, that's the best way of killing them. But really good micro here from our Wood Elf main, our friendly Swede. And just brutalizing these Pestigors and Hounds. And very dedicated to potentially tabling Nurgle here. Glade Lord a little trapped up, but look at the Blade Singers, man, just still going. They get a surround off on the Lord, and that would probably be game if it went any longer here, but it was already over. Wood Elves had a triple cap. They were all over all of the objectives. Very smoothly done. Big value on all of the Glade Guard. 1100, 1300, 1500, tripling their value on all of, or doubling their value, I should say. You can't ask for more. You can't let this happen as Nurgle either. That you can't leave your opponent's missile line to just be that uncontested. Sisters did decently, Glade Riders did decently, Blade Singers did well, Glade Lord was awesome, Branch Wraith did nice. Just a very consistent amount of value across the board for the Wood Elves here. Nurgle's best performers were the Exalted Plague Bearers. Bile Trolls didn't do all that much. Pesties came in twice and barely paid for themselves. Yeah, I mean, the Bile Trolls and these Exalted Plague Bearers did nicely, and that's about it. Just need to keep the Trolls on top of infantry. I hate to harp on something, but that would have made all the difference in the world in that matchup. Ooh, Lizards and Greenskins should be a pretty good one. Although... let's watch some Skaven Dally. This is a very Skaven-favored matchup, usually. We'll see if Swigging is able to flip that around. Dowie have some good tools against the Skaven for real, but usually it's Skaven builds with a lot of Warp Black Jezzails that do really well against the Dwarves. It's a little bit unorthodox in some ways. Ikit is pretty meta, but I think you're actually better bringing just a cheaper Lord than Ikit Claw here. Unless you're going to get a ton of value riding through the Dowie on his Doomflayer or the Doom Wheel. You can just bring like a regular old Footcaster with the Warp Lightning, and that's pretty much going to be enough. Also the Howling Warp Gale to control the gyros. Triple cannon back here from Swigging and bringing Malachi. Malachi does have, you know, Eyes of Grungni and Artillery Master, which gives big bonuses to the Artillery Core. Increases accuracy, range, and reload skill, making them world-class units, honestly. One of the big weaknesses of Artillery usually is the slow reload rate, but you can see here, man, the reduction in fire time, it's gone from 23 seconds down to 19.8. And these, oh my goodness, the cannons and the Goblobber nailing Ikit Claw in the early going here. Pushed back those Wolf Rats also, which are routing right off the field just about. Probably going to rally before they get to the edge. You know, you would hope so as the Skaven at least. Ikit needs to stay safe. The Doomflayers are making a good play. Just trying to get up in the trees and avoid the artillery as much as possible. Maybe going to get a late game flank in here and run these things over. That would be a necessity for the Skaven in this game, actually, I think. They're holding the number 3 and the number 2, though, and these artillery pieces are pretty far back. If they want to shoot onto the number 2 objective, they need to scoot up a little bit and get out of the corner. But shouldn't be too much of a problem for the Dwarves. Swigging has a, you know, like a 900 gold value lead right now. Definitely looking to maximize that. Gyro's shooting at Ikit, but he does get in the trees. Is going to avoid the worst of it. Really good targeting with the Night Runners. Firing against the miners, doing some good damage there, and we do have the Avalanche Mortars who are about to obliterate this entire Dowie formation. One of the most devastating artillery weapon teams in the game. And, yeah, we can just watch the end of these Bugman's Rangers, who are taking big casualties. They do have liquid fortification, just healing them a decent amount, but that is going to wear out pretty quickly, I think. Really good Dowie Micro. Swigging getting all over the Avalanche Mortars here with the gyros and doing some big damage to them. Now firing in over the top of them. And the gyros being in the trees actually means the skirmishers are firing a little bit more inaccurately against them than they otherwise would be, which is really awesome. Treetops actually block a lot of shots. You can see it coming into play here. Gyros avoiding the worst of the damage here and really laying a beat down on the Avalanche Mortars, who are very important for the Skaven to win these fights, man. Clan Rats obviously don't hold up well against Dowie Warriors. One of the matchups here where Dowie Warriors just absolutely dominate all of the infantry fights for the most part. Very rare that you see Plague Monks or more elite Skaven infantry come out. Just because you've got weapon teams and range units that can do a better job of putting down damage than any of those melee units can. Good value from the Plague Claw Catapult up to this point. Good Warp Lightning, Ikit rolling around, getting some good work done. Just trundling about, being a very, very annoying unit. Dwarf Thing Menace is getting crushed right now, and I think a lot of that has to do with the cannons here. Who, if I had to guess, yeah, they've gotten about 1,000 value each. Goblobber's done the least of all of these artillery pieces, but they did enough to shoot down the Dwarf Thing Menace, and I think the other Doomflayer has also been pushed off the field here, man. This is brutal for the Skaven. They really haven't been able to get any good trades. And the gyrocopters are just bludgeoning their front line right now. Plague Monks do actually come out. You can see they beat the Dowie Warriors here, but the Rangers and the Bugman's Rangers should be able to get some good bow fire down to counter these monks as they run in here. A little bit of brimstone gun action going down on the Plague Claw Catapult crew, who's very close to the edge of the map. They probably rout off if the flamethrower discourages the leadership enough. These Skaven crews don't have good leadership to begin with, so very dicey situation for the Skaven there as well. Big damage on the Night Runners, dude. Oh my god, the cannons and the Goblob are just wrecking these skirmish infantry. Decent little bombing runs going down there from Swigging. The gyro play from Swig has been on point and was really good this whole tournament. Dowie do have their Bugmans and regular old Rangers compromised a bit, but they should be able to rally those guys. Cannons should be able to shoot down these Rat Ogres who are a little exposed out here. Very much in the line of fire. I don't know if you need all these Slayers back here, honestly. Guess it doesn't hurt anything. The Skaven just haven't really committed anything forward, so I don't know. Not super worth it, but I guess they do have units that can go into stealth mode. They can probably be a little hard to deal with, so having Slayers back, I guess, isn't a terrible choice. Already still just grinding out tons of value here. A little bit of friendly fire even from the Plague Claw Catapult for some reason. And some cost-effective fire from the Slayer Pirates, as well as more Rangers coming out. And really catching these Rat Ogres out, man. They are just trapped, have nowhere to go. A rock actually slaps one of the Rat Ogre models down. That was actually the Goblobber, too. Pretty hilarious, man. Don't see that every day for sure. Dowie securing the number 2 objective. They definitely could push one unit onto that number 3 now. You know, maybe like, I don't know what you bring over here. Maybe just an Ironbreaker wouldn't be a bad option to move up there. Avalanche Mortars getting a little bit of value on the miners here. Very fortunate for the rats that this unit has rallied, but looks like the gyros might be lining up for bombs. Yeah, they are. But then immediately turn to focus down the Avalanche Mortars and should finish this unit off. Probably going to break the leadership here with the burnt effect. If not, outright kill them with this next volley. Oof. Bathed in fire, man. Rodents of unusual size, really not having a good time here. Slayers moving up, they are caught in the snare net of the Gutter Runners who have gotten good work done. But the Slayers are going to finish this unit off. Being unbreakable is really nice. Even if they don't get their value back, they should be able to kill a nice chunk of this rat reinforcement that wave that is coming out here. Gyros still roasting down some more rats. Oh, you love to see it. Ugh. Fat value from them. Are these, yeah, these are regular clan rats, and artillery shots coming in here, dumpstering those units as well. This cannon has moved way far forward, but is going after the Plague Claw Catapult, which is understandable. It's been doing some pretty big damage to the ranged units that the Dowie have out on the field. The issue for the Skaven is they just don't have a good front line, and they don't have enough to deal with the gyros. A couple of Jezzails would have been a better option. I think in the late game is when you can bring out Doomflayers. Doomflayers and Chariots are really good against the Dowie, but I think in the early going you need to like consolidate for like long-term, long game value, which means a couple of Jezzails, a Plague Claw Catapult, keeping as much of your infantry healthy as you can while holding an objective down, and just forcing the Dowie to value trade with you a bit. usually is the winning strategy. And I just don't think Night Runners are very good here in this matchup. They get outranged by missiles, as you can see. The Rangers are just shooting them down in droves. There's artillery on the field that's pretty reliable against them. We actually have Malachi moving forward now. He's shot a few of his bolts here from his repeater. Got 175 value. Nothing crazy. Cannon back here was 1700. The other cannon has 14, almost 1500 value. And I think the Goblobber was getting up to about 1200 when it went off the field. Brimstone guns out of ammo and just dropping some bombs alongside the other gyro, which has 1700 value. Did get summoned back in. Really good gyrocopter play, man. Again and again, Swig is just all over the Raki forces. Shooting down some rat ogres. Just gonna lock down all the points. We've got a triple cap coming in for the dwarves. Now the rats are grinding back some of this value, though. I do have to say, it's gonna be a little tricky for them no matter what, though. They just don't have a lot on the field. I feel like a lot of their units have routed off, so, you know, being 4,000 down with a lot of your units just running off the field and not getting any money back for them, being unsummoned, really sucks, and I think that's part of the reason why this is still looking as grim as it is, despite the value coming back some. Natty Bubos also get caught by the Slayers, which really sucks, and then Rat Ogres have to bail them out, which is not a good trade. Rat Ogres are going to take a ton of damage here from the Slayers here. Gyros land in melee combat is a big mistake, in my opinion. They're going to just get killed here. And not provide a lot of value. They're pretty terrible in melee combat, but they do help rout off the Rat Ogres, actually. Wow. And then the Slayers and Copters get right on the Sharpshooters. I'll eat my words on that one. That was a pretty slick play. Raki still moving up, still getting roasted. Triple cap still in. That is going to be game. Really nicely done, man. Clean Dowie play makes them look pretty unstoppable, but if you're good about getting into their formation and disrupting it, and just running rampant, keeping them off balance, Dowie become a lot less threatening. Yeah, Wild Hunters are a good target for Buna. That's very true. Ruin some corn win rate in 2023. The Tabith, the win rate being like 1 in 19 is definitely painful. But as you get more familiar with how Total War works, you'll start to bring that win rate up. And yeah, I had a pretty rough time starting off in multiplayer. It's just completely different from campaign. There are transferable skills, obviously. Spell targeting, like good spell targeting, being probably the most transferable skill, but, you know. Game sound is turned off. I don't know why it is. I can turn it back on. Give me a minute with that, but as you get more familiar, you'll figure it out. Just stick with it. Yeah, there was Howling Warp Gale, but Ikit died pretty early in the match, and that was not great. The cannons farmed him. I think he got shot up by missiles as well, and the gyrocopters, I think, finished him. You can see here the Doomflayers didn't get any value. It's really the range tools that the Skaven benefit the most from in this matchup. I think cut the Doomflayers, bring Natty Bubos and a regular Jezzail, and force the Dowie to advance under your Withering Hail of Fire. They're going to have a worse time than you are trading into you. And then you can bring the Avalanche Mortars out if you want. I don't think they're an auto-include here against the dwarves. Gyros can be a pretty good counter to them, but with Ikit, Howling Warp Gale, you can lock the gyro in the air, punish with the Jezzails, Play Claw Catapult pounds the Dowie positions, and then you just push up your chaff, surround the Dowie army, and just collapse in on them all at once. That's the best way to break them down. With the money you save on the Avalanche Mortars, you can also bring 2 Doom Flares, I think. Oh, 1,500. Oh, man. Wow, they're pretty pricey, actually. So, you can bring 1 Doom Flare for the price of that Avalanche Mortar. I do think having a couple Doom Flares isn't a bad idea. Just because they're, you know, a chariot piece. Dowie struggle against chariots, and these things are pretty damn good against the dwarves. Alright, I think we got, like, 2 more matches in here, and then it's gonna be, curtains for me. I think I've gone through most everything now, actually. I don't think... Okay. We need to do the Empire versus Empire, and then... We saw this one. Yeah, we saw this one. I don't think we did, the other semifinals match, so we'll do that, and we'll see what happened with, Pizu, facing off against Khorne. So, a little bit of a mirror match here. But I honestly enjoy a lot of them. They're pretty decent. Elspeth versus the Archlector and his trusty minions here. Lots of state troopers with some Hockland long rifles, pistoliers, and double Hellstorm rocket is pretty intense business, if you want my opinion. A mortar with some flagellants, swordsman state troopers, including the Sigmar's sons.
Dark magics I bring from the shores of
Okay, we'll
death.
listen to her speech.
You should fear me, my friends, but not half as much as the enemy will.
Alright, okay, Edgelord, chill out here. And then there's a couple of spears mixed in as well. Very nice build. Hellstorm rockets are pretty good on this map, actually. You don't need to have them in the open field here. They can actually sit behind the tree line. And they can fire at the 1, 2, and the 3 from back here. Not 100% sure why we're not keeping them back there, but, you know, it is what it is. We'll see how it plays out. They're just going to be a little more vulnerable out here to enemy cannon fire or pushes from cavalry up the alley here. It's going to be a little bit iffy protecting these things. Very fancy pants. You know, just the most normal looking dudes of all time, wandering out into a fantasy battle and wondering how the hell they got there to begin with. Flagellants moving up to the number 1. Some pistolier fire, hitting some of the flagellants and the spearmen. Pretty good targeting. Definitely getting a decent little bit of value, and we are opening up with the Hellstorms. We'll see what kind of effect they can have here. Not getting much damage with the first couple volleys. Little disappointing. You want to keep your artillery spaced out a little bit also, because if this knight unit gets on top of this Hellstorm battery, it's going to be curtains for both of them because they're both on top of one another. Just for future reference for our Empire player, probably need to space that out a little bit better. Free Company Militia moving up to shoot at the Spearmen here. Elspeth flying overhead and wrecking the Archlector right now. Coruscating Blast did go down, Death's Timekeeper as well. Really nicely timed dive into melee as well. Elspeth is one of the best character sniping tools in the game. She's dropping a Spirit Leech now. This is a very dead Archlector. No way this guy survives. pretty brutal opening for Reichsmarschall. And Dancing with Demons is just feasting right now. Do have a big break in here. All of the spearmen and these Free Company terror routing because of the dragon here. Killing the Lord's going to give a big leadership malice. Don't know if this guy's going down. Oh, he is dead now. Big loss for the very fittingly the rebel faction. You fight at the start as God, what is this? Reichland, yeah, as Karl Frenz's starting faction. Elspeth obviously helping out the Prince and Emperor here by doing the dirty work for him. The Hellstorm rocket batteries took a little damage from some of these knights, but they did get cleaned up before they got all over the unit. There is another Empire Knight unit here that needs to be dealt with. This could be a very bad situation. Where even though, I mean, Dances has already lost the Lord. Just like one good charge on those Hellstorms, and it's going to be pretty much over here, in my opinion. But losing the Lord isn't a death sentence as Empire. You can trade okay and survive alright without your Lord, and the Lord should be pretty cheap to summon back out. The artillery is going to be a big deciding factor here. Some good damage from these Hellstorms could flip this game on its head, but they're just not hitting anything right now. And I'm very worried for his own infantry here. They're coming dangerously close to friendly firing every single one of their own positions. Good Grand Soul Fire there. Sigmar's sons get beat up a little bit by the Lector here, or the Warrior Priest, I guess I should say. One Warrior Priest is broken. Elspeth just continuing to rampage and just obliterate everything in her path. Very, very impressive performance from her. She's incredibly expensive, so you would hope that she can do something, right? Handguns are getting some good value against her, though. She is going to need to be careful in the late game. Just because there's no more Death's Timekeeper, no more of those heals. She's gotten as much as she's going to get, unless there's a Pocket Jade Wizard, which I don't really think would be very good with Elspeth as the Lord choice. Hellstorm's starting to get a little bit of damage in here, but still not quite being as devastating as is needed here for Marshall. We've got the Hawk and Long Rifles targeting Elspeth now, getting some good poke in there, and finally a decent little hit there. It's really just this one Hellstorm that's hitting anything. The other is just whiffing every shot. They're just firing so damn slow. Yeah, every 17 seconds you get a volley off. It just doesn't feel all that impactful either. The Sunmaker is usually a better option. It says that the Sunmaker has less ammo, but it fires more rockets in total, even though it doesn't have as many volleys in the tooltip. Usually is also a little bit better because you can actually use all of its ammo up and unsummon it before your opponent can shut it down. More rockets coming in here. Just barely missing. I feel like the terrain is really tripping up the targeting from these batteries as well. Firing onto angles can be really difficult for them, and they actually are killing more of their own infantry now than they are the enemy, which is pretty unfortunate. Marshall is technically up, but a lot of that value is locked into the damage on Elspeth, who is perfectly functional still, and killing the Archlector yet again. This poor guy just can't catch a freaking break. Yeah, he got like 20 value the first time around. Well on his way to getting iced here yet again. Is actually terror routing currently. Very brutal. Takes a big slap from the dragon. That's going to be it. This is why damage value can be a little bit deceptive. You can think you're doing pretty damn well for yourself. But it can all fall apart pretty quickly. Some Empire Knights do get into the cookie jar, onto the Hellstorm rocket batteries. If these things get pushed off, it's going to be less than 0 chance of a comeback. Outrider grenade launchers get slapped up by the Empire Knights. And I think that another issue that's going on, even though Marshall has more infantry out on the field, I do think that the Hellstorms have friendly fired a fair enough amount of his own stuff that it's kind of keeping him on the back foot a little bit. Is taking the number 2 objective. Elspeth does land to try and kill the Warrior Priest. Should be pretty clutch, but does need to finish off this Archlector out here. That would be a game-sealing play, I think, that really has not been recognized yet. Also kind of necessary, because the, yeah, man, I don't know, the infantry for Dancing with Demons is not holding up their end of the bargain. They're really struggling and very thin. Not a lot of supplies in the bank either. Do have some great swords coming out. We've got more shooting coming in from the Hellstorms. Still barely doing anything. I just don't understand where all the value's coming from Dancing. Hawklands have actually done quite a bit there, obviously. Warrior Priests have gotten a little bit of value. I guess just more State Troopers is really paying dividends here. And there were a lot of Flagellants in Dancing's opener, all of whom are dead, and I don't think did all that much. Outrider grenade launchers did pretty good back here. Got more Free Company Militia moving up through the woods. Lots of shattering infantry now, though, for Marshall, which is pretty rough. And looks like Dancing is going to retake this middle objective. Does have a ticket lead also. Just needs to hang on to the double cap, and it's going to be game blouses soon enough. As long as you can get tied up in melee, then the Hellstorms are going to be a little bit less dangerous for you. Empire Knights back here with 1700 value, holding up 1 Empire Knight and a Greatsword. Not a bad trade. Keeping those guys off the points as long as possible is definitely going to do some pretty good work there. Pistoliers moving up. Need to be careful to not just run right into the swordsman, but do stop just shy of them, get a devastating volley off. One more good volley from the Pistoliers should shatter these swordsmen here. Oof. Taking about 12 models down, and yeah, there go the swordsmen. So, Dancing needs to get some infantry onto the number 3. Another swordsman moving up, willing to sacrifice their lives there. More swordsmen, spearmen, great swords, lots of infantry swarms coming in. Big Hellstorm volley does crush those great swords, but the great swords did push the spearmen off, as well as the Free Company Militia that they were able to tangle with. Should be able to put a good beatdown on these spearmen before they get routed as well. And here is probably the end of the game. Dances finally equalizes the value by getting a Empire Knight in here and crushes both of the Hellstorm crews. One of which did decently for itself. The other 75 kills, 400 value, really not worth it. Very disappointed in the performance of those Hellstorms, despite the fact that they were firing all game. Very sad. Elspeth with 2,000 values, been very annoying and very effective at killing a lot of these lords and heroes, man. Coruscating Blast goes down, gets a little bit of damage on the Warrior Priest. A good Spirit Leech, and she's going to peel out of here and avoid the Free Company Militia fire. 69 kills, very funny. And Empire Knights. Looks like they got done trouncing the Hellstorm battery crews. Coming in here, looking to flatten the Free Company Militia and finish these guys off. Very nicely done. Big win there for Dancing. Pushing up some Flagellants. Equalized the value. Has a very healthy lord as opposed to their opponent, who's you know, lost their lord multiple times, and has actually brought the Archlector out for a third time. Oh my god. A third Archlector has hit the field, ladies and gentlemen. That, fancy academic, learning ain't gonna do you no good. The double hammers, you'd think would be doing a little bit more work, but, kind of hard to do that when Elspeth is just endlessly bullying you. Leeching down the Warrior Priest now. Warrior Priests have done a little bit of work here for Marshall, but gonna lose another one. Pistoliers doing decently, man. They've gotten a lot of value over here just firing in against all these state troopers. Swordsman and Sigmar's Sons doing their best to hang on to this point, but it is in the control of Marshall. And we do have a Hellstorm back online. Actually has all of the cannon models as well, which is really nice. I'm gonna get the last few volleys off. We'll see if it lands square here. Not really. Gets a couple of kills scattered around here and there. Very curious how the Hellstorms do with like one chevron. Wonder if that makes them any better. Probably pretty doubtful. I don't imagine it's going to help them that much, but really nicely played by both sides. Very interesting seeing the differences between the build despite it being a mirror match. Very good value on the Empire Knights for dancing. And Marshall did alright with the Knights in his own right. Grenade launchers did okay. Handguns did great, mostly shooting Elspeth. Just losing the Lords. The Lords being pretty poor here for Marshall was a big loss. And there was a Jade Wizard in the back pocket for dancing. Didn't bring it out, though, at any point. No heals for Elspeth, but she did fine without it. Just a great option. She's amazing. Love her to death. Very cool Lord. Alright, and I think we've got one more game, and then that'll be it for me, guys. I think Turin's tournament is going to be starting here in just a little bit, so y'all go check it out once we're done here. So we've got Adam and Pizu facing down on Chateau de Roquefort, which is a pretty cool map. Very hilly terrain. Curious to see how the Medusa does on this map. It doesn't shoot well over hills at all. And can also struggle against Khorne just because, you know, Valky is pretty powerful as a duelist. She can just absolutely shred the Siren of Red Ruin given the opportunity. Oh, hotkeys. That's also a very good point. Good hotkey use can level up your micro a lot. Valkyria flying overhead, just chilling. She's looking to get some damage done, but also doesn't want to get shot up by the Scourge Runner chariots. Scourge Runners are just great, just a great unit. Good damage versus infantry by running over them with the collision attacks. Then the shooting attack themselves, very powerful even against Minos, who are taking an appreciable chunk of damage here. Wrathmongers as well taking a beating from the repeater crossbows, but Furies do come in and are going to screen out. Furies are an excellent counter to the skirmish cav of the Dark Elves, as well as against the Dark Riders. Furies just rock. Great unit. They actually do fold into combat here. They probably actually kill this Dark Rider before they go offline. You can see how quickly they chew into the HP of that unit. Nice shot from the Siren of Red Ruin, getting a decent little bit of damage in against the Marauders, taking a fat chunk of their HP out, about a fourth. That is very well reflected by the value that the Siren has now. Bloodwake Berserkers just charging headfirst downhill, man. Look at the pump in the legs. Definitely getting some calisthenics in these guys. Definitely some hardcore gamers with those hunched backs. And getting those big flails in on target. And they're going to wreck these Black Ark Corsair in no time flat. I would be very hesitant to commit anything else against the Berserkers here. They just don't even care about being surrounded, and they just wreck everything they come into contact with. Crazy strong unit. Not unbeatable, and the Dark Elves of all the factions that can counter these guys effectively. You know, Dark Elves have a better time than most. But a big part of that is the Dark Rider repeater crossbows, who have been pretty effectively countered. One of them about to route off the map, the Scourge Runners breaking as well. Man, Pizu with absolutely zero luck right now, losing a Scourge Runner and a Dark Rider unit who are pretty healthy still. No chance of getting anything out of those guys. It's about 1,000 gold value routing off the field there. Bloodwake Berserkers probably going to win, even against these Witch Elves. Witch Elves are a great unit, and they will probably get these Bloodwake Berserkers down to the point that they're on death's bed, but probably going to feed the last little bit of value that the Bloodwake Berserkers need to, you know, like, maximize their potential here. Although, maybe with the Dark Rider repeater crossbows shooting them down, that could flip this. They also got hit with a Curse of Honor here, which is a really good choice, and we do have Valkia fighting toe-to-toe against Malice. But the Minotaurs kind of fumbling their way into this fight, but they should beat down everything in this blob here. As long as the Furies can get on top of these repeater crossbows, I think this might be a very short game for the Dark Elves. They really haven't been able to stand toe-to-toe anywhere, and their skirmishers are just getting wrecked right now, man. Furies all over the repeater crossbows, and not enough cavalry to counter the Furies when they do land. They've just been a little bit too uncontested. You know, Furies are a scary unit, and they can be very frustrating to deal with. But if you just have a decent number of Dark Riders, or even better, bring out some Cold One Knights. Cold One Knights can stop the Minotaurs if you really need them, do some damage to them also. But Cold One Knights can hammer home against Furies. And whenever you kill a couple of Fury units, it's a lot of time that your opponent's not going to have them on the field, and then your repeater crossbows are going to be in a really nice position. Because they're going to be able to shoot completely uncontested, and if your opponent commits Fleshhounds into that mixture to try and get after them without Fury support, then your Cold One Knights can just wreck the Hounds. Cold One Knights are excellent against the Fleshhounds of Khorne. Beautiful sword. Oh, man. Ow. All the Witch Elves are dead now. The Slaughter Guard moving up, looking to get after the Siren, and Malice just continuing to get obliterated by the Minos, and Valkia here, 1600 and 1900 value respectively on those units, Bloodletters underfoot as well, chewing on his HP, and Malice is not going to be able to last through all of this. Very painful for the Dark Elves. This is the power of Khorne. Khorne can just flatten you if you're not ready for it, if you're not cagey enough with your micro. I can't really blame you, though, Pizu. This is pretty tough to begin with. And, yeah. Khorne just has the perfect army comp against what you brought. I don't like Shades in this matchup. I don't think that they're a good choice. For this exact reason, Furies just feast on them. I mean, Furies surrounding the Shades. The Shades just get absolutely torn to pieces by multiple Furies. Maybe they can be good with enough protection, but I think it's a little too much to ask for in this matchup. Hounds don't have a lot of value, and they do get surrounded by the Dark Riders. You get a good jump on them, and low armor is the weakness of Fleshhounds, so maybe going to finish them off here. Malice is going to be going down, though. The last 4 Minotaurs hanging in here, man. Oh my god, these Minotaurs have been so clutch. There they go. They are going to be breaking here, but Malice does go down, in large part due to the damage they did to him. And then Valkia also doing pretty nicely for herself. Fury's getting their value back, and we've got Fleshhounds nibbling on the immortal soul of this sorceress of beasts who just can't hold up. Marauders fighting Corsairs with the assistance of Khorngors and some throwing axes lending their aid here as well. Win for Khorne. That is going to be it. We do have Valkia trapped on Black Orc Corsairs. That's a pretty nice catch. You can see how badly Valkia gets messed up by even non-AP anti-infantry units. Fleshhounds fighting against Corsairs, a pretty even trade. A little bit better for the Dark Elves if they can, like, hammer and anvil that, but a little hard to do in the state that the battlefield's at. Oh man. Slaughter Guard got 1900 value. They killed the Siren of Red Ruin. They've just been hanging out in the backfield, being annoying, and Khorne is pretty gassed in a lot of ways, but they've just got faster units in general. And they've got the better tools on the field. They've got lots of mobility as well as you know, unbreakable anti-large tools here with a good controlling mobility tool in the Hounds. Black Arcs and Bleak Swords gonna do alright in this fight, but one good rear charge from the throwing axes will probably just finish those guys off, and that'll be game blouses at that stage. Cold Blood Knight's coming out, but I don't think they're gonna have any play here. And Fresh Minotaur is out on the field, should be able to crush through pretty much any of the melee cav here that the Dark Elves have. The throwing axes actually do get their shots off and beat the Dark Riders in a prolonged exchange, which is pretty impressive, man.
Unending glory is yours.
Very dominant win from Khorne there. How to optimize that on your end, Pizu. You did get pretty unlucky with the repeater crossbows routing so early. Lost a lot of value in that early engagement. I don't think Malice is very good against Khorne. He's got some pretty good abilities, but I think that you're better off bringing the Witch King. Because for Malekith, he can just drop Soul Stealer on Valkia over and over again, weaken her down, heal himself up, and, you know, Malekith on the Dragon does have Terror, which is applicable against Khorne. Khorne is very reliant on Frenzy for the immunity to Terror routes. Once that Frenzy goes down, though, it's rough. It can be really rough for Khorne. I don't think the Shades are necessary. Malekith on the Dragon is the answer, and the Siren is okay. Can clear out a lot of Marauders and stuff, but I think going wider would be better for you. Just more holding power. More punch also on the missiles, maybe. Like, maybe starting with 3 Dark Riders in the opening with double Scourge Runner Chariot. And then mix in a couple more infantry from what you save on the Siren. Let's go, actually, you know what? Just this is the last thing I'll do. We can try and come up with a build. Yeah, exactly. Outrun the Wrathmongers and the Chosen. And then you hammer the Furies and the Minos. It happens, trust me. Don't even worry about it, Pizu. Shade dual weapons. Shades don't beat Furies under any circumstances. Especially Khorne Furies. Maybe against, like, Slaanesh Furies or even, like, Nurgle Furies, your guys would be okay. You know? I think against the other Fury variants, the Shades can do something, but against Khorne Furies, there's no way. Khorne Furies have too much melee attack. They have 46 melee attack at base with Frenzy up. It's brutal. They'll just chew through that Shade unit well before it gets close to paying for itself. Black Arc Corsair handbows might actually be a decent option. They're pretty quick on foot. A couple of them with the Dark Riders, the Scourge Runner. Where's Mally? Mally is here. Let's see how much Mally costs. I don't think you need Gaze of Malice. Gaze of Malice is good against other factions that have, like, a lot of chaff. Does a lot of damage, but Khorne's spell resist is more than enough to mitigate the worst of the damage this can do. I think you can leave it off. It's not going to get you that much value. Although, I don't know, maybe you can bring it. I think saving the gold's better, though. Yeah, maybe something like this wouldn't be a bad opening. You can use the Bleak Swords to, you know, like, push up and try and cap an objective early. The Black Arc Corsairs, with all of the mobility, can go cap another. Malekith can bounce between the two forces. Then you develop out response tools to wherever the worst situation for you is. I don't know how many Dark Riders you really want to bring against Khorne. You should use them sparingly and rely on your Coldwind Spear Riders a little more, I think. I do like the Witch Elves. They're strong here. Crows of Cain can be really nice for locking down Valkia sometimes, but it can be a little hard to do. Maybe a couple more Shielded Riders isn't bad. What else? What else? What else? Man, honestly, max Witch Elves isn't a bad idea. I mean, they're just so damn cost-effective against Khorne. Big damage with the Frenzy and the Witch Brew. They can chew through Marauders pretty well. They struggle against Chaos Warriors, but they still do okay there. And they're also really good against Bloodletters and Skull Reapers. Overall, one of your stronger tools. You can bring a bunch of them. Then what else? 950. One more Scourge Runner, maybe? Or just a Scourge Runner? Scourge Runners are probably... I don't know. I just feel like the Repeater Crossbows... Repeater Crossbows are a little more important for killing the Minos. And they're going to draw a little bit more aggro from the Furies and probably force out more aggressive dives from a Khornate player. So you can use these guys as decoys a little bit easier than a Scourge Runner. People are rarely going to chase a Scourge Runner around. They're hard to catch. They've got decent armor and pretty survivable with their HP pool on 4 models. They can be frustrating. You got unlucky with yours breaking early in the match last game. But yeah, like, this is a pretty solid anti-Khorne build. I don't know if you need much more than this. You can always go cheaper by bringing the Sorceress of Dark Magic. You do like the exact same thing. Bring her on the Black Dragon. Opal Amulet gives her a little bit of extra damage against Valkia. And you can do like this, I guess. Or you can bring triple Corsair Handbow. Corsair Handbows are really nice skirmish units. I mean, their bow fire is pretty devastating. They don't fire super quickly, but they get a pretty good spread. And against Marauders, they're a really nice tool. Probably also decent against Wrathmongers. Very good against Minotaurs and Furies as well. Just having that armor means that they hold up really well as a skirmish tool. They can peel for the Dark Riders also. So don't be afraid to come in with something like this. I've struggled against builds like this as Khorne before. It is a really hard matchup, though, for the Dark Elves. It tends to be pretty Khorne favored. But this is the closest thing that you'll get to, like, an optimal build against the Blood God. Alright, guys. Nice, short, sweet stream today. I'll catch y'all around another time. Wednesday, I think, I'll host a tournament. And I'll see you guys then. Oh, definitely kite and value trade. You can't fight Khorne for objectives. You can't go toe-to-toe. Don't think I can afford to summon a Scourge Runner. If you don't think you can summon it out at any point, then yeah, you can cut it. Maybe you can bring a Shade. Just for the AP missiles with some Stalk on them. Or you can just, you know... I don't know, do this, I guess. Just go extra wide. It's up to you. I mean, you're the actual Dark Elf player. A lot of this is, like, my limited experience with them. It is predicated on my experience playing against them, so, that is something to take into account, but in terms of actual execution, I'm not going to be, like, the best person to give you advice on how to best manage it, but this is a good place to go from. Yeah, that's the problem. Like, the Shades do kill the Furies, but they lose a ton of HP in the process, and they are very slow on the ground, and Khorne's mobility is going to get all over them, because Khorne does not want AP missiles to hang around on the field. That's why the repeater crossbows are such a big threat and attract so much dive. Better to lean back on these guys, because they can actually get away from the Furies and stuff. But yeah. See you later, guys. Take care. Peace. And I'll see you all around.